Hi.
Hi.
Good evening. Hi. Here's. We can sample this.
That's not in my collection.
No? There's a few of them. There's a nice picture of Imelda and her husband and LBJ and Lady Bird.
Fantastic. You can't see her shoes.
No.
Good evening and welcome to the theatre. I'm going to just say a few words about the gentleman sitting to my right here. In that I first saw him in 1977. I was trying to work out which came first. Was it with Blondie at the Hammersmith Odeon or was it with... It was that
the Ramones one was...
The Ramones was first.
I think that was first.
Ramones, Stranglers and Talking Heads at the Roundhouse in 1977. It was quite a year. And it was quite a gig, as I remember. I mean, I think what's clearly apparent is that David Byrne has become one of the great cultural agitators of our time. And I use the term agitating kind of intentionally because it's kind of like he keeps stirring the pot. He's a cultural agent provocateur, if you like, and has put his fantastically creative mind out to so many different kind of areas. He's also one of the great collaborators, I think. He's one of the people who seems to attract great talented and like minds towards him on fantastic projects of every kind, whether they be music, whether they be art-based, whether they be theatre-based, whatever. And that brings us to the reason we're here, which is Here Lies Love, which is a musical about Imelda Marcos, which seems like an unlikely idea, although Evita, I mean, there must be sort of similarities, I guess. Anyway, David, what led you to this? What was the genesis of this project?
I knew about Imelda Marcos. She was kind of notorious, not just... Even this is before the shoes. She was notorious for making kind of outrageous statements and giving outrageous quotes, living the glamorous life, going to clubs in New York and London, Paris, and whatever, hobnobbing with everyone. She was, yeah.
Had you seen her?
I'd never
Studio 54 or something?
No, I'd never seen her. At that point, this would have been in the probably early 80s or whatever. I knew she was about, I knew that the other people that were going to that club, to Studio 54, for example, were sometimes hanging out with her or she with them or whatever. And I thought, oh, that doesn't seem very politically correct. That doesn't seem to hang out with a dictator's wife. The Philippines were under martial law at that time. And I thought, that's not really right. To be partying with a dictator's wife, is it? But that's what was going on. Then, so that's what I knew.
So that's lodged somewhere in the back
Yeah, it's
of your
lodged
brain.
in my mind. And then years later, I read that not only did she go to the clubs, she had a mirror ball installed in her one floor of her New York apartment. She would invite friends over. They'd dance under the mirror ball. So in the apartment, I thought she's really serious about the club thing. She doesn't like to. She may leave the club, but the club comes with her. I saw a video of her dancing with a guy named Khashoggi with a big arms deal.
Adnan Khashoggi.
Yeah. Dancing with him under the mirror ball in her New York apartment. I thought, wow, that is an image that says an awful lot. And so that made me think, she's got this music, this soundtrack surrounding her all the time, more or less. And I thought, okay. And it's music that I like, it's music that I can I've dabbled in with different people at different times. And I thought, I wonder if there's a story, a story there, if you could tell her story through the music that she already surrounds herself with. So that led to a lot of research.
So did you sit on Amazon ordering every book with her name in it, or did you trawl?
Just about. I've started off, yes, just going, okay, yeah. And a lot of these show up. And then eventually, after I had kind of a rough draft, I went to the Philippines and had kind of introductions to filmmakers and writers and photographers, and I said, okay, well, I'd play them what I'd written, and they were okay with it. But then they said, oh, you should read this. You should read this, or they were. Really
Did any of them say you should listen to this? This was our favorite track, or you should...
No, but we're doing a little bit of that now. I've started to ask some of the cast. A lot of the cast are Filipino, and I said, "Hey, tell me what are there some club hits from the Manila at that period? I'd like to hear what it was." Yeah.
So it could be, the path you're taking, it could be a concept album.
Yeah.
What turns it from that into a stage production? When do you start to think that's the shape it's going to take?
I imagined it when I first started this. Because it was club music, I thought, what if you could do it in a club,
right,
rather than in a proper theater, which is where it is now. But I thought,
this is definitely not a nightclub.
Yes, it's not a nightclub, but we've done our best. But
Olivier must be turning in his grave.
Yeah. I'd occasionally been to some of the larger kind of warehouse type dance clubs, and they tended to be just a giant room. Maybe there'd be a bar at one end or something, and occasionally there were what used to be called track acts who would come in and perform. So you'd have Frida Payne or Gloria Gaynor or even Grace Jones or someone who would come and sing their hit, and it was usually one hit, over a pre-recorded track, and on a tiny stage, maybe the size of what we're on, only higher. And that lodged in my mind too, that an act they'd come out and do that, and then they'd maybe sing another song, and because they really just had the one hit, they'd go back and sing the other one again. And 20 minutes later, their show was over, and the crowd was totally happy. It was a little interlude between all the dancing and everything else.
And a bit of glamour and...
Yeah. You got to see the real person. But I thought to myself, what if you could have more of these little stages and have maybe video stuff to kind of back it up, and you could actually have like a DJ mix of a bunch of songs that had a narrative arc that told this story in that way, and different singers would be on different platforms and they would tell a story that way. But I imagined it taking place in
a club.
Yeah, in a large mega disco. And I imagined that, you go to a mega disco and there's an arc to the evening. It's the arc of what the DJ plays or the drugs you're on or whatever it is. And I thought, what if it was a narrative arc and you actually got this kind of emotional, catharsis or whatever, as well as having danced for hours. And there was a lot of details were not worked out. At first I thought to myself, what if you could do this without having any dialogue whatsoever? It was just
completely sung through.
Completely sung through. And this show is, for the most part, sung through. But what if you could do it that way and have it be like club mixes where there's interludes in the middle of songs that are just for dancing, and the audience kind of just absorbed the story by osmosis. It wasn't like
You're assuming this audience is sober, paying attention.
Yes, I'm wondering about
not having sex in the toilet.
I made a lot of misjudgments, and I thought, would they just get it and connect the dots all by themselves and figure out what the relationship of the different characters are and what was being referred to? And I realized after a while that's a little much.
I'm asking a lot. So then did you think, no, it's got to be a theatre piece?
Yeah, then I thought, I think it has to be done with the backing and support of a real theatre.
Okay. At what point did morality enter all of this? Did you think, hold up, this is a dictator's wife with lots of shoes who's done very many bad things. She might have a disco ball, but she also has blood on her hands, or however we can see it. What was the kind of thought line about all of that?
For better or worse, I thought, we as an audience have to, if not identify with her, we have to empathize with her.
Because that's a tough call, isn't it, to some degree?
You're going in thinking she's a monster. I know about the shoes. She's a monster. She's a dictator's wife. She's done bad things. That's what when you come in, that's what you think. So I thought, I have to kind of humanize her in some way so that you actually start to empathize with her to some extent, to understand what brings her to the point of doing bad things. Maybe it doesn't explain the shoes, but it sort of does.
But it seems to me that the shoes actually explain themselves.
Yeah. Once
shoes.
Yes, once you establish the other stuff, her kind of status and class anxiety, which was really a big driving force. She was from a good family, a name family, and the Philippines has a lot of powerful name families, but from the poor side. So she was invited to the teas and whatever, but couldn't really participate. She was invited to serve the biscuits or whatever, or maybe sing a song, and she wasn't really part of the kind of the better part of those families. So she was felt ostracized, and because she was part of the family, she felt like this is unfair. I should be part of this, and I think that drove her a lot. Other things too, which I think some of them you get in the piece. But
did you have to get to know her?
Did I ever meet her?
No, I mean to get to know her, to feel that you could inhabit her, if you like.
Yeah. I mean those things that would drive someone, that kind of whatever, the class envy or status or anxiety or whatever. I felt, okay, that I understand. I think everyone can understand that in some shape or form. Some of the kind of personal things that drove her personal relationships with her husband, with her boyfriends or whatever, that we can all understand. Of course, I knew that at some point after having been seduced by her as an audience.
And was she a seductive character?
Yeah, and I've never met her, but she's supposed to be just walk into the room and it's like everybody goes, wow. She has like this aura. But I thought, okay, as happened with the Philippine people, at some point I have to pull the rug out and go, okay, now we're going to disappoint you. She's going to disappoint you, and you're going to feel betrayed by this person that I've gotten you to empathize.
So that's a different arc to most theatrical ones, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you're supposed to end up liking them, not starting off not liking them.
Yeah, and I thought, okay, you just start liking, you're going to evolve to like them, and then we've got to get you to a point where you realize, okay, off with their head.
I mentioned Evita earlier on. There are, to some degree, little parallels.
Yeah. Poor girl kind of marries or finds her way into the top.
And charismatic, somehow kind of embodies the aspirations of a nation, all that sort of stuff. And, is of dubious morality, I think. There's a degree of...
Yeah. I purposely didn't see Evita. So was
it purpose? I mean, were you aware of that?
After I realized there was a similarity, I thought, I'm not going to see it until we're all done. And I think, because I thought, what if there's too many similarities? There are quite a lot. With the club music part is a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go to that music, because it's funny, isn't it? When punk first emerged in the 70s, it was seen as the kind of antithesis of disco and that whole thing, and there were rednecks burning disco records,
exactly,
all that sort of stuff. And even over here, Johnny Lydon makes death disco and all that sort of stuff. And yet you've always clearly had an affection for, and actually listening back, you did Take Me to the River, you did soul music songs, you did R&B.
There's always been that kind of interface in your musical worldview, hasn't there?
Yeah, I mean, there was always, the Talking Heads was always kind of a mixture between kind of soul music and a little bit of punk, and then some
art house.
Yeah, arty stuff, all kind of mixed together. But there was always kind of a groove going on.
Have you always liked disco culture in that sense? Whatever that means.
I thought, I mean, there were various periods. There was periods when DJs and stuff started doing remixes and extended mixes, or I guess they were called dance mixes or whatever. This was years ago. Where I thought, oh, this is really innovative. They're taking the recordings apart and making them into something else. And there was a period where I thought, oh, this is really inventive, what they're doing. It's much more inventive than what a lot of the new wave bands were doing, which had kind of solidified into something I thought was fairly conservative. But I thought, oh, the dance club DJs were actually doing something at least structurally innovative. The songs might not have been about anything special, but musically it was really interesting.
Were you a club goer yourself?
Once in a while, I would kind of go to the artier New York clubs, whether it was Mud Club or something like that. But occasionally I would go to a dance club.
Would you be seen beneath a disco ball?
Have done that, but I didn't continue. I couldn't continue that life. It was because a lot of the places would really kick in at 1, 2, 3 in the morning was when they would really get going. I thought, no, I'm a little bit of a workaholic. I like to have my day job of writing.
When you're writing something like this, and it is it's within a genre, if you like, do you have to refer to the kind of greats of that genre? Obviously one of the things you do is you bring in someone like Fatboy Slim, and you kind of do that. How did that all come about?
When I was writing this stuff, I thought, I have a feeling for beats and grooves and stuff, but I thought it'd be nice to have someone who really does that. And so I approached Norman, Fatboy Slim, through his management. I'd never met him.
I was going to say, did you know each other?
No. I liked,
So why did you pick Norman? What was the...
I picked Norman because, I was a fan of his things, but I thought, the things he'd done had a kind of wide stylistic range.
Yeah.
Some of them sounded like kind of soul things. Some of them were, what was it called, big beat at the time. Some of them were a little bit techno-y, but they were never completely in one genre. It wasn't like, I do house, that's all I do, that's it. This is the tempo I do. There are plenty of kind of dance music people where they self-define themselves into one thing. He doesn't do that. He used to be in a band before he started DJing. So somewhere in his mind, he knew what a song was, which a lot of DJs don't. They know what a 10-minute groove is that slowly evolves or whatever. But if you say chorus or verse, there's no meaning for them whatsoever. And he said, so we kind of jumped in, and I think he got a little bit more than he bargained for. It was a lot of songs.
How does collaboration work in this instance? What's the process, if you like?
It started by kind of remote, kind of emailing, recording,
sending over
things back and forth,
MP3s or whatever.
He would send me beats that I would write a song over. I would sometimes at the same time send him kind of a demo I'd done of a song that was maybe just done to a really kind of a loop or a bad beat that was not that inspiring, and then say, can you juice this up and make this more exciting fill it out a bit. And we did that for a bit, and then I'd come over and go to his home and studio in Brighton, do that a couple of times, and kind of get everything up.
When you sorry to interrupt, when you start a new collaboration like this, I mean, you know, I don't want to push the analogy too far, but what if you don't get on? What if it's kind of like a relationship you've started for this period of time?
Yeah, I know. What if you don't get on? There's always that possibility.
Has that happened? Because you've done a lot of collaborative work.
Not very much. I tend to be very careful about defining what each person's role is.
You should run a dating agency.
Something like that, yes, marriage counseling or whatever. But it's very like, right, you're doing this, and I'm doing this,
Right.
and I won't intrude on your territory, and hopefully you'll do the same. And that tends to work pretty well. I mean, there's been some collaborations where there's been blips and miscommunications, and
is communication the essence of it? Making
I
sure
think
that
so.
everyone
As
knows
long
what
as you
they're
can
doing.
make it really clear what you're feeling, if you don't like something that somebody says, as long as you can kind of say so, which is really hard to do.
Yeah.
In the nicest possible way. Yeah.
And what about collaborating with theatrical types?
So I shopped the idea around after I had the songs written, but maybe not properly recorded.
You've got,
I've got demos of everything with Norman's stuff on
and it works as an arc now. You think it's got?
Yeah, I
you've
thought,
got
there's a
90
story.
minutes, or whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Yes, I've got about 90 minutes. I thought, there's a story here. Here's what it is. The story was a little different then. It's still there, but then it was mainly focused on two women, Imelda and this woman, Estrella, who was her childhood maid, who was only a couple of years older than her. She was a very young maid, and therefore also became her kind of best friend.
Confidant.
Yeah, confidant, best friend, whatever. And they part ways. It's just Imelda kind of moves to the big city, marries Ferdinand, et cetera, and then there's intersections again later, a couple of times, some of which are pleasant and some of which eventually are very unpleasant. And I thought, this is kind of gives a perspective on what's happening to her. That's still there, but it's kind of, now there's a lot more going on. So I shopped it around. I went to theatrical producers. I think the first thing I tried was, I refer to it as the Arts Festival model of funding. Here you would know things that have been done at the Manchester Festival, where whoever, David Alburn or whoever, gets commissioned to do something at the Manchester Festival, and then which generally probably cost a fair amount of money to kind of get it all together and cast and rehearsed and everything, and then maybe someplace else, New York or wherever, will pick it up, and it'll kind of run on from there. Not always, but sometimes. I tried that model. To make that successful, you have to get about 5 festivals to agree to do it, and then you kind of skim off the top of what they're paying you, and that becomes the money that you use for developing the piece, for rehearsals and paying the technical people and the actors and all that sort of thing. I couldn't get 5. I think I got 2, and I think it was because.
What are the Manila festivals?
Yeah, the Manila Festival. I think it was because they looked at me and thought, well, why do you need money? Or you're too popular to be considered kind of a legitimate kind of serious theatrical artist. But then we look at your project and it's completely out there. So it was a little too arty for conventional theater people. So quite a few years of taking it around, shopping it around.
Years,
Yeah, years of taking it around, shopping it around, going to commercial producers who said, fine, we like this as you're the author, so we'll basically make a deal with you and just take it from you and wave bye-bye.
And you weren't
we'll
prepared to do that?
Yeah, I thought, no, I'll hang on. I'll do it with, if I ever get to do it, I'll do it with someone who will at least kind of work with me a little bit.
And during this period of time, are you honing it, or is it just sitting there, or are you kind
Sometimes
of
I would
going
hone it.
back to it?
Yeah, sometimes I would go in and go, oh, I think this song could be improved. I'll record, I do overdubs, strings or horns or whatever, kind of making it sound sometimes more like music from that period. Sometimes I'm trying to find a happy medium where it has like things that Norm has done, but with some of the period touches and arrangements kind of mixed in too. So it evokes older music, but isn't a complete just like imitation of whatever. Wasn't getting anywhere. And I thought, at that point, I'll invite, I said, I really like these songs. I'm very happy with them. I'll invite singers to do a record of just singing these songs.
Yeah.
And so I went to, Florence and Santi Gold and lots of them, lots and lots. And I would kind of approach them based on, this person would be great for this song. So I'd kind of cast them and approach them. Some of them I knew, some of them I didn't. And say, will you do this? We're just kind of doing an all-star record of these songs. And that took a couple of years, just people's schedules and all that. But that became a really nice, I'm happy with the record, but it also became a kind of calling card. And I could go, listen, this is what it's supposed to sound like.
And you then take that to whom to get it to the next stage?
I don't know if it was through me or someone. That ended up with a place called the Public Theater, which is kind of like the National in New York, but the National with a fraction of the funding. And they...
Don't make it sound like this is well funded, though.
Okay, sorry. The director there said, okay, we will go through a process of you working with or meeting with directors who might interpret this, and start by doing, the proposal was do a series of workshops, which meant doing it in like a classroom or a schoolroom or a unused gymnasium or whatever, any kind of cheap space, often without costumes or without just using a boombox for sound or whatever else. But you could then figure out, how is this going to work? So there's no promise to do it, but there was a promise to kind of take the first step. And after the first step, they liked it, so 6 months later, the next step.
I presume while you're doing this, you're doing other things as well.
Yeah, I'd do a record and go do a tour or whatever else. And I thought, I'm not going to put all my eggs in this one basket, although
So what was it that kept the drive going, do you think? Because you decided it was that good, or it was...
I really liked the songs. I thought I'd made a breakthrough in the songwriting. I thought writing from the point of view of these characters, and especially using some of this stuff. There's one up here about, it's a oral history of the People Power Revolution. I don't see it, maybe someone's checked it out. There'd be these great quotes from Imelda or from the participants in the People Power Revolution or whatever. And to me, as a songwriter, it was a gift. I thought, I don't have to put words in their mouths, and they're saying,
there.
They're all there. The phrase, "Here lies love," was her phrase. There's another one that she explains that she's the people's star and slave. And I thought, if ever there was a club song, there it is. But I thought, it's all coming from them. They've said it. Which, yeah, it was a total gift. So for me, then the songs just poured out relatively quickly. I could write things that were sometimes very sentimental or kind of tear-jerky or whatever, things that I would never, ever do for myself. But having the excuse of saying, well, this is what she said, I could say, it's not me, it's her or him or whatever. I could do that. And so as a result, I got these songs that I thought, oh, these are, to me, very moving, but they're not a reflection of me, but I find them very moving. So I thought, okay, I was really happy with that, and I think that's a big reason I couldn't just leave it on the shelf.
How long from inception to finally seeing it on stage?
Probably 9 years.
Wow.
Really long. I mean, you can imagine, you can do the math. If that happened every time, you'd get a handful of things done in your lifetime.
Yeah, and you'd starve on route.
Yes.
What was that like, first night?
When we first did it?
Yeah.
I was ecstatic. I mean, of course, people might have hated it, but I was ecstatic because for me it was working. For me, I saw it working.
Is it like you envisaged?
Yeah. Oh, better than I envisaged. I envisaged a kind of a perimeter of little stages in a mega disco.
Almost.
Yeah. But Alex, the director, the set designer, and other people, they took that and went further with it, and now the little stages are on wheels. They roll, so they move around. There's a big rotating platform that the actors perform on. There's a part where they form a kind of runway, like a fashion runway or whatever, through the middle of the room, so the actors kind of go through the audience. All these kind of things that I thought, wow, that's expensive, but but yes, if you guys can get that to happen, that is amazing.
What was the critical response?
I think it's been good. I haven't read.
Do you take note of that kind of stuff? Or?
No. I've been kind of trying to stay away, and then occasionally, if somebody goes, "Oh, come on, you can read this.
Impinge upon
You can read this one." Yeah, sometimes I try not to read it, or just somebody will say, "Oh, the reviews have been good." Then okay, that's good. And I realize that because I have all this personal baggage, that even if there's a good review, if it's essentially good, if the writer says something about, oh, the geeky guy, the geeky psycho killer, or whatever else, or kind of finds
that's you.
Yes, finds a way to describe me that is, I mean, that wouldn't have bothered me, but in some way might have find a way to describe me that is, in some ways kind of hurtful.
But you must have developed a relatively thick skin.
Yes. So if they say geeky psycho killer, that's just funny. But some other things you just go, oh, jeez.
I know the feeling. Yeah. How did it end up coming to London? What was the story there?
We did it in New York at this place, the Public Theater, about a year and a half ago, the spring of 2013, and I think one of the Knicks from the National and some others from the National saw it, as they do. I think they're often checking out things around the world, and really liked it and said, yes, we want to do this. We want to do it in this space that we're renovating. It'll be ready in a few months. That was, like a year and a half ago. But yeah, they finished. They did finish what is now the Dorfman. Yeah.
Have you thought? I mean, has it ever been put on in a disco? Have you thought of going back to that?
Going back to
original idea?
there's maybe there are here, but most of the big mega discos are gone. There's none. I don't think there's any in New York anymore.
You can't do it in a coffee shop.
Yeah, and they've been the clubs that are there in a lot of towns have been subdivided into VIP lounges, and then there's a little bit of a dance floor, and then there's another lounge for people who aren't the VIPs. and
But not very important people.
Yes, it's not the same. It's not kind of everybody on the dance floor, and now it's cool people hanging out with their bottles and models or whatever.
When it was coming to the National Theatre in London, I mean, did you think, wow, or was that kind of, you blasé enough?
No,
what was your response?
No, it's kind of like, wow, gee, this is really something. It's all downhill from here.
And were you always going to come over with it, or could you just kind of ship it off and put it in crates and send it over? Or
Oh, this is something I discovered in jumping into the theater world a bit. Is that technically the author, and I'm the author, is only needs to be consulted if there's going to be a change in the music or the words or what the actors say. Or that. Other than that, my job is basically considered to be done.
it's a franchise. You can't ship it over here.
And so, it's kind of like, okay.
It's KFC.
In many cases, it's kind of like, you're done. We hope you like it. We hope you'll say nice things about it. But we don't need you for the whole process. But both Oscar, the guy who runs the Public, and Alex Timbers, the director, and kind of the other creative crew, the people doing the videos, and they welcomed me in, and they were open to my comments and things. And I had the knowledge that they could ignore anything I said. I knew what the rules were. So any comments I made were kind of like, okay, provisional. And if I made a comment to Alex, the director, and said, I think we need a light on that actress when she comes out, and we're not.
So do you get that involved in the minutiae of it?
Well, up to a point, but I wouldn't say that out loud. I would say it privately to Alex, and then he can choose to ignore it or not, which is really generous of him, because he doesn't have to listen to me at all at that point.
Do you feel proprietorial when you watch it, or when it comes here? Or
Yes. I feel like, look at this thing that I've been nurturing for my baby. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, but then you realize, it's a collaboration. It's Alex and the video people and everybody else and the actors who inhabit the roles.
Clearly you have you've collaborated with lots of people. Brian Eno, all sorts of characters. But something like theatre is much more of a collaboration than making a record, isn't it?
Yes.
Is that tough?
It could be. As I said, there's these in theater. I assume the rules are the same here as they are in New York. There's just definite rules. The author has no say other than within the words or the music, or the composer, the music, etc. But in the same way, those words are completely sacred from the director and the actors or whatever. Unless the author agrees to a change, they can't.
So they're not going to start ad-libbing?
They can't start ad-libbing unless I say, okay, they can ad-lib there, or I like what they ad-lib there. They can't change a syllable. Sometimes it's ridiculous where they go, can we just do this? David, is that okay? Can we just do this? And I go, yeah, of course. Can we change that to an A? Really?
Is it really like that?
It's really every word. So I feel like, okay, I've got my little, fiefdom, and they can't mess with that. But then technically I can't mess with theirs either. So that is familiar to me from collaborating with musicians, where if you define the boundaries, and then you can kind of get on.
Has this whetted the appetite? I mean, are you now
I'm writing another one.
Oh, are you?
Another one. Not
Does it
sitting in a
involve
disco.
shoes?
No shoes. It's not sitting in a disco, but we'll see. I'm not done yet.
So I mean, we almost are done, because I want to get you guys to ask some questions in a second. But for those who haven't seen it yet, or maybe even for those who have, what do you want people to come away with from it, do you think? What's the...
Wow. What I come away with it, almost once the kind of the actors are really in the groove and it really starts to click, I come away with this kind of feeling of a tragedy of this woman who kind of at some point, driven by various forces, kind of turns to the dark side, and you feel her pain, and that she's inevitably making the wrong decisions or going to someplace and you go, don't do this, and she does. And it's a tragedy for the Philippine people. You feel that too. You feel that they've been betrayed, because the Marcoses did do a lot of good things early in their tenure. And the Philippine people loved them. The whole world loved them. They were really glamorous. And then it all went wrong. And you feel like this incredible kind of sadness, some anger, but really a lot of sadness that, that this happened. And then kind of this kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's not really joy, but it's this feeling like the Philippine people kind of drove them out in what was called the People Power Revolution, which was like Arab Spring, but in the best kind of way. 4 days, completely peaceful, and eventually the Marcoses realized that they had no choice but to leave. And you realized, wow, they did it. They drove out a dictator without a shot being fired. And you just thought, wow, that is something else.
Well, talking to David Byrne is something else, I have to say.
Thanks to all of you for coming. And David Byrne, thank you very, very much.